Hey everybody! Welcome to Your Diagnonsense, a podcast featuring stories about relationships, sex, pleasure, and everything human. I'm your host, Todd Barretts, a sex and relationship therapist in New York City. Together, we will have an ongoing conversation focusing on the unlimited spectrum of nonsense that accompanies our lives. Join me and some of my favorite people for some casual but meaningful fun. Today we have Matthew Dempsey with us. Matthew is a psychotherapist in LA who does a lot of great work with gay men. So today we're going to talk about both of our experiences as gay therapists working with gay men. So I'm super excited. This is a conversation I've been wanting to have. Matthew and I talk a bunch on Instagram, but this is actually our first time live speaking with each other. So I'm super excited. So thank you and welcome, Matthew.
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited too. Like I was saying before, this is the first time that we've talked in person, but otherwise we've just kind of been like Instagram pen pals.
Yeah, totally. I'm pumped. So first, I'm curious just about what you bring to your sessions. So if I'm coming in to see you for therapy, what are some of the questions that you ask? How do you do your first couple of sessions?
Honestly, I'm kind of super chill and casual. I'm very much just kind of let a person come in exactly as they are, talk about whatever's kind of top of mind for them, and then I just kind of take it from there. I don't really have a super structured way that I start sessions. I really kind of let the client guide me a little bit to see where they're at, kind of what's going on with them, what they might need, and then just kind of let that just create organic conversations. I just really let those first few handful of sessions just kind of be us getting to know each other, obviously me getting to know the client more, and then kind of take it from there. It really depends on the person and kind of tailor it to each person.
Okay. And do you have any questions that you start off with, or I don't know, any secret weapons?
Not really. I'm not sure exactly how you do it if you're kind of more structured. I don't. And actually I think a lot of clients are kind of surprised by that too. I think they actually kind of want more specific questions, but I'm really just kind of like, what's going on? Like, tell me what's up with you. What brought you in, to come see me, or what had you reach out to me? And just kind of let people go from there, because I feel like it allows them to get a little bit more to the core of where they're at, as opposed to me kind of automatically jumping in with an idea of what needs to be talked about. It kind of lets people maybe squirm a little bit, but eventually get a little bit closer to what we need to touch on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like my first session is a structured interview or anything. But I'm just curious because,
Yeah.
Everybody has a different style, and some people have just questions.
Yeah.
I usually ask, what brings you in to see me? The first session, I usually just talk about what's going on in your life today. And then after that, I tend to talk a bit more about history, or I don't talk about I ask them about their lives, their background.
You tell them about the Revolutionary War. Is that where you start? Is that how it helps?
Exactly. I talk about the Middle Ages, my mother, and maybe my father, but I'll wait for daddy issues for the second session.
Perfect. Yeah, you got to ease them in.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, I mean, I'm super casual, but I'm just curious because I don't know. Everybody has I don't know. I asked this one question, and I'm always just curious if that's part of your practice.
Yeah.
So I tend to dislike this. I don't dislike this question, but I'm gonna ask. I don't know how I feel about it, but do you have a particular? I don't even want to say perspective because it drives me wild when people ask me. But I don't know, a style or theory or a passion or I don't know, spirituality or whatever that you bring to understand your clients, etc.
Yes. So, I mean, I can understand why you hesitate to even ask the question, because it is so broad, kind of the different approaches that we can take as therapists, or the perspective that informs the work that we do with clients, that it's really hard to kind of narrow.
It's also, I think, a really question that's over asked amongst therapists.
Yeah.
How do you, what's your perspective? I'm like, I don't know. But
I mean, I think it is helpful, not necessarily to kind of box anything in ever, but to just have a little bit of kind of a framework or a structure. And so I guess to answer the question kind of as best I can for myself is really the kind of the perspective that I was taught in grad school really does kind of align very much with, kind of who I am and my kind of life perspective, which is just kind of multiculturalism. and just kind of understanding the variety of cultural experiences that we have in life and how that has really shaped us and the way that we feel about ourselves and think about ourselves and, kind of motivate and activate ourselves in life with the things that we want to do. I think that there is so much about just kind of understanding those cultural experiences that really shape that. And so just kind of having just a bit of that psychoeducation really kind of like infused into the work that I do has been really helpful for me as a consumer of therapy, just being a client myself in the past. And then it's also something that I found has been just really kind of helpful and effective in the work that I do with clients too. By no means does it dominate the conversations or the therapy overall with the clients that I have, but it's definitely kind of infused in there because it's, it's just kind of what I believe. And then of course other perspectives too sprinkled in there too. But yeah, and also when I say like cultural experiences, I don't just mean necessarily like race and gender and sexuality, like that kind of stuff. Obviously those are more like salient, but I mean, even things like, growing up in suburbia, growing up with like, a specific kind of culture in the family that I'm from, but just starting to frame things in those terms, I think is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. I say I like that because that's what I do. That's what I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It's like it's hard as a gay man not to have that be really present part of doing the work that we do.
Agree. I don't know if you find this in LA, but I mean, especially in New York. New York is heavily psychoanalytically focused, and
Yeah.
like talking to any sort of psychiatrist or biomedically centered thinking mental health care provider. What's crazy to me is that's not really part of the story when they're saying this is the work that I do and how it's like really steamed in like theory and psychoanalysis or CBT or, a lot of acronyms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I got my start in New York and worked for, quite a number of years in New York before I moved to LA. So it's a popular question too that people ask me, if I notice a difference between the two cities and the work that I've done in both cities. And in New York, there definitely is this kind of like hyper intellectualism just in general, kind of embedded in the culture. There it is, culture again, culture of New York. And so I think a lot of people then kind of bring that into the work that they do, into therapy, and really want to try to like kind of break things down, very intellectualized. And in LA, there's a little bit of more of an openness otherwise to be able to explore things, I mean, kind of like spiritually or whatever, but it's not as kind of driven into just kind of breaking things down like so intellectually.
Okay, so I'm learning that I should just move to LA. As I'm like staring out into the.
You know what? Honestly, it's perfect.
Sky.
I pretty much spent all of my 20s in New York, and then now I've been spending my 30s in LA. It's kind of I feel like those are nice times to be in each city.
Yeah, that sounds really ideal. Yeah, I don't know. I find the intellectualizing of a lot, or the intellectual elitism in New York, especially with psych-related things, a bit culty and exhausting. But
Yeah.
I mean, mostly just because it's not congruent with the way that I think about it. So,
yeah, no, totally. That's, I mean, just on a personal note, I loved being in New York for when I was, because it helped me really, kind of really understand therapy and the work that I could do, and just my craft in general. It really did help me very, very much to kind of sharpen my teeth in that way and hone the kind of left brain part of things. But then coming out to LA, I felt like it just helped open me up a little bit more, so that I wasn't over intellectualizing everything, but I also could kind of, open myself up just kind of more emotionally and more creatively, just kind of more of, kind of the colorful parts of things. And so it just kind of has helped round me out. I would never say one is better than the other, because it's not, but they're just so complementary. So being able to have experiences in both cities, especially as, kind of a working professional, has been really cool.
Yeah, that does sound really cool.
Yeah.
Different flavors. So we see a lot of the same population. We both see a lot of gay men. And as I was saying before, when we were talking about this, it's not like I have only selected to see gay men, but that's oftentimes who comes in to see me. And And you
Yeah.
have a similar experience, right?
Yeah. Mostly gay
Um,
men. Yes.
yeah. So just, just tell me a little bit about, or what's your first reaction, when I ask you, what are some of the issues that you see with the gay men that are coming into your office?
I mean, my first reaction is like, fuck, I don't even know anymore the difference between like gay and straight because I've been working exclusively with gay men for so long. It's almost like hard to compare and contrast anymore. But that said,
Well,
I
not
will
necessarily
say in
comparing, not
general,
contrasting to straight, but just in general, like the gay men that you're seeing.
got it. Gay men, yeah, gay men that I'm seeing. I mean, I would say kind of the biggest thing is that every I feel like one of the biggest issues, you can let me know what your experience is too, is just wanting to connect, just wanting to be able to, how many times I've heard people say like, I just wish I had like, friends that I connected with, or like a good group of friends that I felt like, felt safe with or whatever. I wish I met, I wish I had like a partner that I felt like connected to, whatever. But people just really want to like connect overall more. And it's been just really hard for people to know how to do that, to know how to take risks to do that, to know how to invest into themselves, to feel more confident and stronger, to be able to take some of those social risks and put themselves out there, to know how to manage things when things don't go very well a lot of times, and to know kind of, how to keep moving forward and keep yourself open so that you then can connect with people, and also be aware of the kinds of people that you want to have in your life, and maybe some of the obstacles of knowing how to identify those people and how to create healthier boundaries and things like that. But like, just again, at a baseline, gay guys wanting to connect with other people in more meaningful ways, not knowing how to do it very well.
Yeah, I see a lot of the same thing in terms of just a lot of loneliness,
Yeah.
and a real kind of desperation around really craving intimacy, in whatever shape or
Yeah.
form, whether from sex to friendship to, marriage, whatever. Um, but
Yeah.
then oftentimes hitting like a huge, tall, obnoxious wall when
Yeah.
trying to do that. And I think not because they don't have the tools or they don't know how to sometimes. I think they're just a lot of fear and anxiety around revealing
Yeah.
themselves. Um, and which obviously exacerbates some of the loneliness and the isolation. Um,
Yeah.
and do you connect that to anything specific, like in terms of shame or value, or all, I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
yes, the answer is yes to all of that, but how do you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Like, there's no way that, as a, let's just say gay men specifically, there's no way as a gay man that you're growing up in a world that is, still homophobic. Like, being gay is not held to the same standard as being straight. And so to have that discrepancy is, of course, going to be internalized in terms of homophobia, and that just colors the way that we feel about gay people, and then inevitably feel about ourselves. And then just, kind of builds on shame that we have around just being who we are. And then it can make it really difficult for us to feel more positively about ourselves, to know how to connect with other people through that. And it's also kind of a mind fuck too, because I think a lot of people get really confused by the fact that if they have come out of the closet, then there's no way that they can have shame about being gay anymore, and fail to miss the more nuanced, layers of shame that can exist in there, and can have us just feeling kind of like shitty about who we are in ways that we don't even fully realize. And then that's the stuff that very kind of, less consciously keeps us from opening ourselves up and from taking those risks. We have like so much fear that it's only a matter of time that before people figure out that we're full of shit or that we're terrible people or whatever. And so we just keep ourselves closed off. Maybe we kind of like open ourselves up a little bit more here or there, but it's time limited. And then we, self-sabotage and kind of pull away and go on to the next group of people, but never really have an opportunity to connect in kind of longer term or more meaningful ways with other people. But there's definitely, kind of gay shame that fucks us up.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to go back to what you were just saying, because that was what I was going to ask you. In terms of being disconnected from any of that shame as ending, or I think the fantasy, delusion is that it ends after you come out of the closet. And
Yeah.
then, it's
Yeah.
just pure bliss and you have your chosen family and it's just never there. Because
Right.
I, at least at first at the beginning, when I'm seeing somebody, that's usually where they're coming from. I'm not seeing some gay guy that's coming in saying, I'm still struggling with shame related to being gay.
Right.
And whenever I
Yeah.
bring it up, it's really the response really addresses any sort of gay identity or whatever in terms of it being in the past,
Yeah.
as like some hurdle that was jumped over and now it's only looking forward. But so yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you respond to that?
I will just get curious about it with them. I never try to suppose that I'm, of course, the expert on them and their lives. I'm never going to say, no, you actually do have shame, and here's why. Like that's not really effective anyway. So, I just get curious about it, and we'll just kind of ask questions and explore a little bit more and kind of push here or there and kind of maybe challenge some thinking. But otherwise, if they feel pretty confident that it's not an issue, then it's okay, fine. Let's talk about what you think is the issue. And, inevitably, like if it needs to, it will come back up. We'll kind of circle back around. We'll maybe, kind of explore things a little bit more. But I never push too hard, just enough to kind of challenge some things and let a client go where they need to go.
I do a little bit of scream therapy, so sometimes if I disagree with my clients, I yell at them. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I mean, could you imagine?
I mean, if we just had some objects nearby that we could just kind of throw at them if we need to, just to kind of, shake it up a little.
Yeah, just catch someone off guard by throwing like a stapler. I think it could be effective. Really a departure from intellectualizing things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, curiosity is really helpful. But I think it's interesting just in terms of coming out as marking this, the end of a process, which I think it is. But it continues, especially as we go out in the world. Do you see?
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean marking the end of a process?
Like, I mean, similar to what you were just saying, that when we're growing up, we, to some extent, have to deal with coming out, or first I think about it as a grieving process in terms of, because, I mean, we first learn about ourselves as being straight, I think most of us, at least the way that we're told who we are. And then we have some sort of, there's a contrast from what we feel inside versus what our parents, our families, the world, whatever is put on us.
Yeah.
And so then, it's a process. But so you asked me what I mean by the end of that?
Yeah, just because you said the end of a process. I wasn't sure if you meant therapy sessions or just like in general, people's individual process.
Oh, just, I mean, coming out, like saying I'm gay.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious on a kind of a personal note. Do you remember yourself, like the first time that you learned about the idea of, internalized homophobia and shame around being gay? Do you remember that for yourself?
I know that I like researched it. Like I've always been some kind of an analytical person. So I literally Googled it. I don't even know if Google wasn't around. I researched it
like
somehow.
how old were you? And like when was the first time you even heard of the concept
of being gay? Well, I mean, of course there was
not being gay. No, not being gay. Obviously, like being gay, figuring that out, whatever, coming out. But then at a certain point after that, realizing like, oh shit, wait, there's this other thing that happens to you, or that can keep that still is a part of the process of being gay even after you come out, like shame, internalized homophobia. Like when you learned about that stuff.
Oh, I got it. I'm like, I was 10 and I was no, I definitely wasn't 10. I mean, this was probably, I don't know, maybe in undergrad when I started studying gender and sexuality. And I was I don't know what the book was, but it was some book, some class discussion where we were talking about internalized homophobia. It was, I don't know, whatever. It was probably some textbook, and it was in a very, what's the word I'm trying to think? I don't know.
Like academic terms?
Yeah, it was very formulaic. That's what I was saying. It's like super formulaic. So then I did my own research and whatever. But it's usually not part of the curriculum that people learn.
No, totally. I mean, I remember I was in grad school. Like I had already done my, undergrad in psychology and all my studies. It wasn't until grad school that I, had made this one friend who was my friend Frank, and he was in like the industrial organizational kind of like, psych program. But we just became friends. We actually took over the student organization, the queer student organization, and he was the one who introduced me to the concept. He was just like, IH, all the time, IH. I'm like, what the hell are you saying? He's like, internalized homophobia. I'm like, tell me more about this, internalized homophobia. And so he just kind of like broke down the concept for me. And I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, okay. And it just kind of took me off guard, and it just stayed with me. And it wasn't long after that then that I also had my therapist at the time be like, you need to read The Velvet Rage. And I was like, what? It's the book by Alan Downs that really talks about what internalized homophobia is. And, and I read that, and then it just kind of like opened me up in such a new way where I realized how much that stuff actually does fuck with us. But it took me a while to actually understand it and then also believe it, because I think for a moment I kind of was like, is this just a convenient excuse? Are we just blaming this thing? Like, do we need to just be better in general, And then starting to realize, especially doing the work that we get to do and hearing people's stories and how much this stuff really does play a more significant role than we realize in it. It's like that stuff has really made me kind of become aware of it. But yeah, it took me a while before I, even kind of heard of it and then actually like figured it out.
Yeah, it's a full-on journey. I'm curious, do you ever, like, does it pop up for you?
My own internalized homophobia? Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say, okay, just using this past year as an example, I have really, I really took some creative risks. I did a little bit of a web series. I really
did.
put
It was
myself
really
out
good.
there. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Everybody should go on YouTube and watch. The cost
Oh,
of two
thanks.
sandwiches.
Yeah.
Everything will be linked below. Anyway, continue.
And so I, had this kind of like creative inspiration. I thought, wouldn't this be like kind of a cool show? I did everything that I needed to do to make it come to life. And just to do something like that, to do something that I'm kind of just to, use my time for something that I'm passionate about. And then also to just do it in a very kind of like public way, where I'm like putting these videos on YouTube for anybody and everybody to see. It just, that takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to work through my own fear of it being bullshit, of it not being good enough, of people not caring, to like quiet that noise down, all of that, which is shame and kind of my own kind of internalized homophobia that's, bubbling up, to quiet that stuff down so I could do it. And so I did it. I'm very proud of myself for doing it. Was it this kind of like huge, phenomenal success that just, went viral and took off? No. And it's hard, and at times it's hard for me not to still kind of have that noise of shame come up and say, hey, like, see, told you, like, why'd you waste your time? So having to manage all of that stuff. But I would say that is kind of a really good example of my own shame. That's just like, you're not good enough. Nobody's going to care. There's something that's just, inadequate about who you are. So why are you even bothering? That kind of stuff. And, and then I kind of, after releasing all that, I kind of just went quiet for a little while and didn't really, create as much. And it's, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that there wasn't a big part of that noise that kind of has motivated me to create less, because I'm just like, I need a break. I'm kind of afraid to keep putting myself out there. And that's my own shit, and that's my own stuff to keep working on, and to have to, kind of get myself animated again and motivated to do the things that I want. But I would say that that's probably the best example of my own shame that comes up and really limits me.
Well, first, I mean, the quality of that series, I mean, both in terms of the production quality, but also in terms of the content and just the general meaning that I think it really draws or sheds a lot of light on is amazing. So, I mean, I think it's something you should be super proud about. I mean, I'm very impressed. It's like inspired me to do this because there's like no therapists really doing anything other than Instagram and your series.
Right.
And a lot of you've done a podcast before. I've stalked you and creeped you thoroughly. But like, I'm just to kind of reinforce the work that you're doing. I mean, it's great.
Oh,
regardless if
thank
it's gone
you.
viral or whatever.
Right, right. No, thank you. No, I really appreciate that. And also, and this isn't just to kind of, kind of like offer you some praise back because you just gave me some, but actually also feel very similarly to you and the content that you put out there. The fact that you're doing this, I think is cool. Just in general, the presence that you have on social media, I fucking love. Like, first of all, I think just the way that you kind of, just the visual aesthetic of your stuff, you put a lot of time and effort into. Even just the colors of the way that you post, I think is really beautiful. But the content of the things that you put out there, I think is super solid and super kind of, kind of obviously rooted in a lot of like actual legitimate information. But then the thing that I love about you the most is you are so painfully yourself and sincerely yourself, and I fucking love it because like you don't hold back. You're not trying to find the perfect therapist words for things. You're very much using your kind of like unfiltered personality to get the information across, and I love it. I love that you do that. And also, actually, kind of on a note of a little bit of a pang of shame is when even the first way that I came about your just you and your Instagram account was somebody had tagged both of us in some kind of like self-helpy kind of thing, and I'm like, who's this other person that's getting tagged? Your Diagnonsense, what is this? And I click on it and I see your stuff, and honestly the first thought that ran through my mind was, fuck, there's somebody who's going to be like better and kind of more fun and have a better personality that's like doing this work and whatever. Like that was if I'm being totally just like honest about it, that was my first thought was, okay, somebody else like newer and better has come along. And then I just kind of like just started like looking through your stuff, and I just became, I don't know, just kind of like enamored with who you were and how you presented things, that I thought it better to befriend you than to try and push you away in any kind of way.
Oh my God. Okay, you have to stop there. That was a lot. Thank you so much. Those words do mean a lot. But similar to you, it's a struggle to actually internalize them and to actually be like, yeah, this is me.
Yeah.
And it's not confidence that I'm using to do any of this. It's kind of boredom. Just in terms of like what I want to do. But like,
Yeah.
I have the same exact thoughts that you have in response to risk, which is what you're describing.
Yeah.
When you took a risk, because it's a big risk to do what you've been doing and make the series, it brought out all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the same shit comes up for me. And I think that, I don't know if I wouldn't say that this is internalized homophobia, but I think it's just like an extension of a familiar feeling that comes from that place. For me, it's like, my work is for sure, like whenever I take a risk and I do something like this, or if I even want to make a fucking post, I'm just like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. I think my last post was terrible,
Yeah.
but like, what the fuck ever. But like for me, that's like, I can manage it. It's more my personal life when I'm like, because I was in a relationship for all my 20s, and so dating is new for me as an adult. And so
Yeah.
like, I was not ready to confront all of my lack of security, like my insecurity as strong as they were when I started dating again. Like that was hugely shocking for me. Like I felt so,
Oh.
I didn't like, it wasn't like I was feeling super confident or I thought I was hot shit or anything, but like, I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be for me to kind of hold on to that sense of self when I was with somebody new, or like on a date, or like having sex with someone that wasn't my partner for a decade. It was
Right.
crazy. So it was like being hit over the head with a bat. So for me, that's
What were
kind of my stuff.
what were the insecure totally, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were some of the insecurities that surprised you the most, like specifically?
Well, what didn't I knew that I was gonna be I knew that I was gonna be insecure about not being super masculine.
Right.
I don't even try to classify or categorize myself as masc or femme or whatever. But I'm
Right.
certainly
Right.
not like butch and manly. That's not me. So like
Right.
I was
Yeah.
I was approaching these things. I don't know if these guys are gonna like me. I'm not like super masc, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but it was mostly just about like talking about myself. Like I don't like I can talk about myself. It's not an issue. But then when
Right.
I'm like sitting across on the dinner table or in the bar or whatever, and just it like I was trying to speak about my life, and I was like, the words are not coming out of my mouth. Like, what the fuck? Um, I so that was shocking, just in terms of revealing myself, because that's like I feel like a strength of mine is that I can really communicate about myself to my friends and
Yeah.
family, work in progress, whatever. But I was really shocked when it was just hard for me to really reveal myself. Like when someone asked me a question,
Yeah.
like, uh, it was the words did not come
Yeah.
to me, um, which I think just reflects some kind of I don't even know what label I would give that, but it's insecurity.
Yeah, no, totally. I get that. I mean, it's hard, and I think especially because of how we are in the work that we do, most of the time it's like, okay, let's just get right down to it. Let's get real about things. Let's talk about deep things. Like let's get down to like the real shit. And when you're dating and going on dates, like that's not how conversations go up front. So
No,
it's hard to, it's sometimes hard to know how to be authentic and sincere, yet also kind of light, and just kind of have it be kind of more of like a casual conversation. I think sometimes that can be a little bit tricky when our strong suit is to just get deep, and it can feel maybe a little bit, I don't know, some of those insecurities can come up not knowing how to just kind of just, have more like casual small talk.
I know my first dates were certainly not casual and light. I was like asking about mom and dad. I was like getting the whole psychosocial history. It was ridiculous. It was like I think I asked somebody like when they first had sex, and I was like, this is not a like their first time having sex. Like, this is not a first date
You
question,
like,
Todd.
yeah,
But
no, you're like, you're defaulting into like first session mode.
I'm like, this is not a session. Stop it. You're single and dating, right? If you
I'm actually newly in a
Oh
relationship,
my
so
goodness.
I
Mazel
know.
tov.
So the
That's
last few,
great.
thank you so much. So the last few years have been very much, kind of active dating. But yeah, I've just gotten into a new relationship that I'm super happy about. And
That's
to be honest with you,
amazing.
yeah, thank you. It also took I would say just kind of in general over this last year, it's been a lot of like new boundary setting, like to sound very clinical about it. So it's a lot of new boundary setting. Like it was just, it was kind of like, okay, I'm done with the bullshit of like some of the issues that have come up in friendships. I'm done with some of the bullshit that has been happening in, some of the relationships in my family. I'm done with the bullshit of some of like dating. And I had to really kind of take a step back and be like, I'm not doing this, and this anymore. And just kind of like, we're just going to see where the chips fall after that. And so dating was very much a part of that too. And this person that I'm dating now, we really kind of started exploring hanging out at a time that I don't think he was ready yet to like get into a new relationship, but was still wanting to hang out with me and see me and spend a lot of time with me, but like not really commit to anything more. And it was hard for me because I really liked him and I really liked the time that we got to spend together and everything. But I had to be honest with myself that I really was ready for something more serious. So I had to like say no to that and basically say like, listen, like I get that you're not ready, but also I am. And so if things change for you, you know where to find me. And to have to stick to that too. And also be willing to just kind of let go of the possibility of something with him anyway. And so that was like a conversation that we had back kind of like in, kind of early summer. And then like at the end of the summer, he came back around and said, hey, listen, I've been like thinking about you every day. And I do feel ready for something more. And so then I said, okay. And so we just kind of started exploring it. And it just has really been fucking cool and very like organically kind of unfolding on its own. And so it's been really nice. And it's felt like kind of a newer, healthier kind of relationship than I've ever had before. So yeah, so that's my current dating status.
Well, that sounds so cute and nice.
Yeah, it's been really great, and he's fucking awesome. So it's cool just getting to see, where this goes.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about boundaries, were there any other ones that specifically like were louder than others? Certain things that stick out to you?
Do you mean just in general or dating?
Either or. When because you were saying that you started setting a lot of new boundaries for yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what were
I would say there, I had I had some friendships, I had some family relationships where there was a bit of a lot of like kind of blame that would happen, and blame and finger pointing kind of in my direction of things whenever conflicts would happen or issues would come up. And it was a lot of times incredibly unwarranted. And I think, you can let me know what your experience is too, especially as a professional caregiver. I think it's really easy to kind of default into, okay, I'll help kind of clean this up. Like I didn't really, create this issue, but I'll help try to clean it up. And, just try to be understanding and patient and compassionate and all of those things in a way where you don't even realize you're doing more work than you should. And that was this past year where I realized I was doing that and decided I was no longer going to do that, and having to set those boundaries and letting people know, like, this is not okay. Like, you can't speak to me this way. This is not something that I've done. And if you want to have a conversation about other things that you're feeling, then I'm here for that. Otherwise, I'm not here for this conversation. And to be able to do that in a way that was really firm and really direct and very to the point, but not in a way that was aggressive or defensive or pushed people away or made them feel like I didn't care, because I did. I just wasn't willing to have that kind of relationship with them anymore. And so those were a lot of conversations that I had to have with certain people, guys that I've dated, again, friends, family. And so, so I had those conversations, and it was really hard and very challenging at times, especially when there's a lot of pushback on that. And especially when you have to then say goodbye to some people who aren't able or willing to, make some of the changes that I needed to. And so that's hard also to say goodbye to people. So anyway, so it was really kind of challenging, but also like the total overhaul that I needed in general to make sure that I have the exact right kind of people and relationships in my life that I need in order to be able to have a more fulfilling life and fucking thrive in ways that I want to.
Yeah, it's hard. I like the way you said professional caregiver. I never use those words like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, no, I have a similar experience. But I think one thing that you were saying that sticks out to me is that that when we talk about boundaries, it doesn't necessarily have to mean be aggressive, and it doesn't necessarily have to mark the end of a relationship. For sure, sometimes it does. But sometimes
Yeah.
it marks the beginning of a new relationship with the same person that's a better relationship, um,
Yeah.
that's based more on what you're willing to give and receive, etc. So it's just
Yeah. Totally.
because I think when people talk about boundaries, especially on social media, it's all like, get rid of the people or you're going to lose people and those people don't matter and all this kind of really
Yeah.
like almost violent social communication. But
Yeah.
I really like the way you put it, that there are ways that you can set boundaries that aren't aggressive, that are kind and compassionate, that are more where you're asking for things in a nice way.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Well, and then it doesn't even necessarily have to be nice, but yeah, but just to be really direct and firm and assertive, not aggressive, So it was like I would say like that the goal is to have boundaries, not walls. If you're throwing walls up, you're not doing it right. If you're just, throwing people out or pushing them away or anything that's defensive, then all you're doing is reinforcing this belief that that's how aggressive I need to be in order to not be hurt and in order to be able to like maybe somehow be heard. And it shouldn't be like that. And if that's the force that you're using, then you're only, again, kind of reinforcing that there's like a weakness within you. And so to be able to just be really direct and firm and have those like incredibly clear boundaries with people, and also to be able to do it in a way of like, I love you, but this is what I need, I think is so fucking empowering.
Totally agree. And I think it's really just about taking responsibility for yourself, as
Yeah.
opposed to taking responsibility for people to respect
Yeah,
you.
totally.
But yeah, an important distinction. I have a similar experience where I just default to that mode, even on my dates, as I said. But
Yeah.
I try to set similar boundaries, especially with my family. At
Yeah.
times, I become the family therapist, and that's like the antithesis of what I want to do or be.
Ugh. Yeah.
And I don't like that. So,
Yeah, I hear you.
so yeah, it's been a couple of years of new boundaries with my fam and friends for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
And that's just how it is too, right? Like it's not ever like, oh yeah, you set your boundaries and now you're fine in life. Boundaries are like always evolving and changing and are
Totally.
fluid. So it's always just having to just stay aware of it and keep managing and keep checking in on it.
Totally. I'm wondering just about gay therapist thing. Do you, do you, I mean, because a lot of my clients are like my age, dealing with the same exact things I'm dealing with. Like, it's
Yeah.
wild. Like sometimes, like I will be struggling with one specific issue, person, whatever, and then a client who is my peer will come in with the literal exact same issue. I'm just like, this is creepy.
Yeah.
um, Sometimes it just works out like that. But so do you like, how, I don't even know how I want to phrase this, but what part of yourself do you bring to some of that? And how does that just affect you personally?
I I really I really bring a lot of my own self into therapy. I'm very willing to be transparent and to share some parts of my own experience in life into therapy. I'm always first checking in on, as we're trained, how does this actually, what I'm about to do, this intervention that I'm about to use right now, how does this actually benefit the client? So I'm always checking in on myself on that way. I don't want to just kind of like start talking about myself the whole time. But I'm willing to open up. I'm not that traditional therapist that has to be a blank slate. I don't think that fucking works. I also don't think that works today, and I don't think that works in communities who have historically been invisible, like having to I think it's helpful for us all to take our masks off. So I bring that in, and I'm willing to share. And I'm also very willing to be honest with myself about any of my own kind of countertransference, my own shit that gets stirred up as clients are talking about it. And then in a way also be able to, kind of talk through some of those things in a way that I know is also benefiting me too, to be able to kind of challenge my own fears, challenge my own thinking by presenting certain conversations to a client who's describing maybe some of their own similar struggles. And again, kind of inject even some of my own kind of personal anecdotes in there too, to be able to just like show what it looks like to be vulnerable, not just tell people to be vulnerable, but to also to model it.
What I think is also interesting is that a lot of my clients assume that I don't, which is where I bring myself into the session at times, where I will disclose, etc. Is that I had a client, I think, that was talking about porn, and they're like, well, I don't know if you watch porn, but, and I just started laughing.
So like, they clearly don't follow your Instagram.
No, I think this was before my Instagram, but I was like,
okay.
It was just funny because like a lot of,
Yeah.
it's easy to objectify a therapist. But yeah, but yeah, not the story. I watch porn. And what about your experience in your own therapy? Are you in therapy?
I'm not currently in therapy right now, but I've definitely been a consumer of therapy throughout my life. So I definitely have, periods when I check back in, but currently not.
And this is broad, and I'm sure there are many different things, but out of the different experiences you've had throughout your life in therapy, what would you say the most powerful was? Whether it's something you learned or a relationship or whatever.
Yeah, I would say probably some of the most powerful things that I learned about myself throughout therapy was, again, I think just a little bit more of the understanding of how being gay can impact how we feel about ourselves and our own just general self-concept, and how that actually, in ways we don't even realize, can significantly impact how we move through life and all that, all decisions that we make on every fucking front. So just being aware of that, the cultural understanding of that, which is again why I use that perspective in my therapy. And I think the other thing too is just like general codependency. And so understanding the kinds of relationship dynamics that I've been in before and what that has meant about me, but then realizing like, okay, well, they're the variables, I'm the constant. So what is this saying about me? And so having a little bit more perspective about how I've gotten into relationships with a certain kind of person and how I can feel very comfortable being in this kind of, again, very like caregiving role, constantly doing for the other person, you know, maybe pulling more weight than the other person or whatever, that kind of stuff. And realizing what that actually means about my own insecurities and my ability to be able to show up with who I am and what I need, and finding, you know, more tools to be able to cope with that and to build a stronger sense of myself, as opposed to trying to, you know, get some sense of worth by proxy by doing things for other people. So I'd say that that was also a really powerful learning curve for me, for myself in therapy.
Interesting. And it sounds like you bring a lot of that to the work that you do.
Yeah, very much.
In terms of what was most powerful for you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I find that a lot of the therapy that I've received informs my work like a ton, and my relationships in just like a general way. Just in terms of how
Was there anything for you? Was there anything throughout your therapy that stands out to you as being a really significant, I don't know, kind of learning curve for you?
Yes. I've been seeing the same therapist forever, since I was like 14. So a long time. What was most beneficial, powerful is probably just really helping. He really kind of, I don't want to say convinced me, but helped me hold on to a sense of personal value that it was really hard for me to do throughout, I guess, my childhood.
Yeah.
And so his presence in my life and just the ongoing work that we do helps me reconnect with a positive sense of self, you know, that with self-esteem and value. I mean, that's value most importantly. And I think it's just the relationship that I had with him, not necessarily something that I learned.
Yeah.
But the relationship was just so unique and really helped me, because I didn't have a lot of people in my life telling me that I had value. And this was, you know, the first person ever that was like, oh, you know, essentially in the communications, you have value, blah, blah, blah. So that was really just hugely impactful to have a consistent force that actually like gave a shit. And so that
Totally.
the communication. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off again. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the communication there was just really huge. It made me feel seen and worthy and valuable.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, don't you feel that that is sometimes probably the most healing part of the work that we do? As much information as we have in psychoeducation that we can bring to the table for therapy with people, that can be so valuable in a lot of ways. Just learn more and have greater insights and perspectives. Just being able to feel like seen, heard, liked by your therapist is, I think, probably one of the most significant parts of therapy. You know, do you feel that, like when you're having those moments where you're just being present with a client, not trying to like think about like the next thing that you could say or the intervention that you use, but when you're just like listening to them and can show them that you care, how impactful that is?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, what I try to do is just that with my clients. And I really try to provide that's the relationship as being the most impactful thing. I think that's the most powerful thing anybody can give anybody, whether it's a therapist, a parent, or whatever. I think we want our parents to give us that. And oftentimes, unfortunately, we don't get that. But yeah, I mean, that's what I got from my parents. Oh my God, my therapist. I got from my parents in whatever ways they gave it to me, but got it from my therapist, and that was hugely, hugely impactful. And so that's what I try to do with my clients. This kind of unconditional. I don't want to say unconditional positive regard, but
Psych 101.
Yeah. But acceptance, affirmation, reinforcement of positivity, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I don't think oftentimes that's what my clients want. They don't know it yet.
Yeah, exactly. You know, people like clients come in, I find especially with gay men, they come in and they're just like, okay, like, here's the thing that I'm struggling with. What do I do? Right? They just want to be like the actionable part. What am I supposed to do? Give me homework. What steps do I take? How do I resolve this issue? Yeah. As opposed to being able to like dig deeper and find the other stuff and, you know, confronting them or the emotional shit that can come up.
Yeah, everybody comes in, I'm broken, fix me. And then my response is, you're not broken. Why do you need to be fixed? And then it's like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
And let's begin. Um, but yeah, it's a complex relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? Is there anything else that we should get to? I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we've definitely
Talked
talked
about
about a lot of great
ourselves.
stuff.
We've talked about ourselves as therapists, as relational people. We're real live human beings.
We sure are, honey.
Yeah. Well, thank you for chatting with me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
It
It
was
was
fun.
lovely. Yes.
So if I were to direct people to you, what's the best place to go to? Is it Instagram? Is it YouTube? There's so much good content
Uh,
everywhere.
you can probably just find me on social media. On Instagram probably is best. It's MJ Dempsey Psych. And I've got a link in there in my bio for YouTube videos also. So it's a pretty good central way to find me.
Cool. Okay. So MJ, what's your middle name?
James.
James. Cute. All right. MJ Dempsey Psych on Instagram. Well, again, thank you so much. This was fun. I hope you
No,
enjoy the
thank
rest of
you.
your day. And we'll talk soon.
You too. All right.
Thanks, Matthew. Thank you for trusting me with your valuable time and listening to this podcast. You can find everything we discussed today and more in the show notes. You can also find more information about our past guests on my website, toddsbarretts.com. Follow me on Instagram at Your Diagnonsense for more meaningful and fun content about the human curriculum. Thanks again for listening, and check back for the next upcoming episode of Nonsense.